ordinance concerning limitations of feeding feral cats. Now, this did pass 5-0, and we had a lot of different people that came up. We had 5 that were pro the ordinance and 4 against it. 2 of the pro were some business owners downtown, Ron Hall and Tom Brand, and they had their the reasons, was hampering with their business.
Right.
One, it's limiting the use of the patio for the rail yard because the cats are tearing up the furniture, so they can't have
the furniture, no comfortable chairs.
Comfortable chairs, because they'll tear the fabric, I guess, or urinate on it or something, and the smell. And Tom, they were moving some stuff out and stuff, and one of the cats got in, and it took about a week for them to get it out.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And that's there at Norm Murphy?
Yes, at Norm Murphy.
Yep.
And but we had Jeffrey Prine, the former mayor. She got up and talked about the feeding program and taking care of cats and how colonies and stuff work. And there was a Pat Hiltz that he talked about that too. And he actually gave us some quick feral cat facts, and you should be seeing it on the screen right now. 1 female plus her litter, 7 times 7 years life span, is 420,000 cats. 50% of them, the kittens born feral, die. The average feral cat lifespan is 3 years. 1 out of every 12 cats born find a permanent home, and 450 animals are euthanized in the United States every hour.
Wow.
So, that's... and he also had one about feral cats as far as she lived outside for 7 years. She's not homeless. Truth about outdoor community cats, and talks about the cats we call feral and stuff, and that they are healthy members of the society, I guess. And feral cats are adoptable as a pet because they have not been socialized. It's hard for them to be placed in homes. Feral cats are killed in most shelters. 70% of all cats in our shelters are killed there, and of all cats. Now, 100% of the feral cats.
Yeah.
Probably goes to that number, the one up above it, but can't home them. Trap, neuter, return is the humane, effective approach for a feral cat care practiced by millions nationwide. And Dr. Tahuli, she got up and she talked about that of areas that they have done. And
now she's with the Arkansas Valley Animal Hospital.
Animal Hospital, yes.
Right.
And
so she's the resident expert.
She's a resident expert.
Okay.
And she said that they took over there by the Meadows, and they picked up all the cats. They spayed and neutered them, and then they came. But then the program stopped, and then now they're all back.
Right.
It's a program that can't stop. You just got to do it
Has to be
and
constant.
over and over again. And she talked about a 15-year study that they do work, but they have to be a continuous type program.
Exactly.
Right, which really made sense to me. And so, and we did have Joey Gasnick that he got up, and he is our U.S. Department of Agriculture animal expert, and he was talking about very much the same thing as everybody else as far as on the trap, neuter, and return. And he did talk about the hot zone and the downtown and how they've he's had to trap out about some possums down in there because it's not, when you put out that tray of for cats, possums eat it, skunks eat it. It brings in all the
raccoons get to it. Yeah.
Yes, and they say once a raccoon or a possum, knows where their food, he'll remember it for years and years, and keep coming back. So, we had Cassandra Thomas talk about, and let me tell you, she is taking cats and had them spayed, neutered, take care of them till they're healthy and stuff, and then finds homes for them. we had Angela Ayala get up and talk, and she, as a citizen, and saying about some of the cat problems that they've been having down into downtown, and Clara Lee Stafford, she came up and she talked about let's don't be humane and stuff, and that was at Pat Hill's, let's not just get it to where we kill the cats, and nobody wanted to kill the cats or anything.
Right.
So, they talked about like a rabies vaccinated program that we could get maybe like rabies tags going, and then that'd be a revenue stream and stuff. I haven't had a chance to look at that. I don't know,
Okay.
but I'll try to find out. I know that Pat Hiltz, he says there's about 30 colony of cats around La Junta right now.
Wow.
So, but bottom line, this did pass 5-0, and what it does is it puts it in with garbage, and stuff, and putting out those containers, and you could be fined from depends on what the judge does up to $2,000.
All right. So that ordinance passing unanimously
Right.
by council.
And that is first reading, and second reading will be in 2 weeks.
All right. Very good. It'll be coming up in a couple weeks.
Yes.
And so, of course, opportunity for public opinion is also going to be available again in 2 weeks.
That's right.
All right. There
All
we
right.
go.
And
It's working now. Mr. Mayor, this ordinance was prepared at the request of council, and it is a culmination of thoughts that have been exchanged back and forth for about 6 months now. This is not a new concept that is just before the council tonight. By way of explanation, I consider that the steps taken to try to start enforcing matters that may relate to feral cats, among others, and that's a little bit illusory, is that it's not directed solely at feral cats, but that it is a minor first step in terms of regulation of animals that are running around within our community. Some communities require registration of cats, collaring of cats. I have attempted to restrict cats even being out in the area, the community, in the context of, well, you let your cat out at night, the cat goes across the street, that being a violation. So what we've tried to do here is take a baby step forward in trying to minimize the food sources for stray cats, skunks, possums, dogs, just animals, echo myself on that, animals that are out there and are eating and are not being protected or cared for by their owners. So this is, I can't emphasize enough, a first step. Hopefully it'll be sufficient enough to regulate the cat overpopulation, which just been flooded with complaints about cat enforcement, and it's just out there. It's out there everywhere you look. So if we have discussed this, we presented it for discussion at the last meeting. I'd like to have it considered on first reading, and again, if someone would like me to read it by title only, I'd be glad to do that.
Do we want to have, we want to do that, or do we want to let them have their time to speak for or against?
Well, I think we could do it just easily enough by getting it out on the floor, invite the public to make comments, because I'm sure there's some here. Council may choose to want to make some comments, and consider that all within the discussion phase.
Okay.
And then vote on it after that.
Okay.
I suggest that it just be read by title only.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, for the council's consideration on first reading, an ordinance concerning the limitation of feeding feral cats.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Now we will have discussion. Anyone that wants to speak on this issue, you will have 5 minutes, and you can step right up to this microphone.
Hello, everyone. Everyone pretty much knows who I am, except for Mr. Ramirez. I'm Jeffrey Prine. I live at 5 Circle Drive here in La Junta, former mayor of La Junta, and cat lover and cat feeder. And I am here to discuss the ordinance that you have on the floor. I do believe there are ways to take care of our cat population. I think some of us are following those ways. I think an ordinance absolutely banning food is not the way to do it, and I have a few points I want to make. I could have easily filled the room with cat lovers who wanted to come in and speak. I didn't think that would be the way to go. Instead, I wanted to bring in some professionals that could give you their perspective. I hate to say, Tracy Tauli, you guys probably know, we only have about 2 vets left in this valley. She worked until 1 o'clock in the morning last night. She really wanted to be here to give you guys her perspective on how to control the population. She still could arrive at any time, but if she doesn't, I promise you we'll get a statement from her, or when we get to second reading, I will have Tracy here to go over her perspective, which her and I have discussed extensively. And I think she's a professional. I also have Pat Hill here. He and his wife have been cat rescuers, cat trappers, spay and neuter advocates all over the United States. We are lucky to have them now in Ordway, so they've been helping us. I know recently they were at a home in North La Junta where there were 17 cats left by an elderly gentleman who passed away. They were able to trap those cats and get those cats in to be spayed and neutered, to rehome the ones that could be rehomed, and to put other ones in colonies where they could live. Some cats cannot be rehomed. They are too feral to be rehomed. That doesn't mean they shouldn't live. So I have a little information because I was a little taken back by some of the things that have come before council that talk about how diseased cats are and how cats are passing disease to humans and to each other. So I have a little bit of information, and of course on the internet you can find your perspective and I can find my perspective. That's why I wanted to bring Tracy in, because who knows better about diseased cats in La Junta than a local veterinarian. And she will, as I said, give you that perspective. But feral cats are cats who do not socialize with humans. Instead, they lead contented lives with their feline families. Most of these colonies are mothers and children cat. Most of the toms roam the streets. So the colonies consist of mostly mothers and baby cats. And if we can catch those baby cats before they get before they become too feral, they can be rehomed, and they have. Cats, like squirrels, chipmunks, and birds, are capable of living healthy, fulfilling lives in the outdoors. For thousands of years, cats have lived outdoors alongside humans. Just because they don't live in our homes doesn't mean they are homeless. Yet the current animal control system and even misguided animal welfare organizations believe that taking feral cats to shelters where nearly 100% of them will be killed is more humane than leaving cats to live in the outdoors. The science and the opinion of most Americans tell a different story. And what's crazy about La Junta is we don't even have that. We do not even have a shelter where a cat can be taken to. We treat a cat as we treat a squirrel or a bird. And if you look in most backyards in La Junta, people put out food for birds, they put out food for squirrels. They're just like that. We don't have a place where they can go to be humanely treated unless someone or groups of people are willing to step in and do what's humane for the animals. One prominent animal rights organization falsely states that horrific fates await feral cats, like diseases, injuries, and human cruelty. But these claims are based on isolated incidents and not supported by scientific evidence. In fact, the research points the other way. A 2006 study found that 103,000 stray and feral cats examined in spay and neuter clinics in 6 states from 1993 to 2004, less than 1% of those cats needed to be euthanized due to debilitating conditions, trauma, or infectious diseases. Feral cats live full, healthy lives outdoor, and there are no reason for them to be killed in shelters or whatever this ending is that says we don't feed them anymore, so they're just going to go away. Because that's what I feel like the council is saying. If we don't feed them, they're going away, and that is not accurate. In 2008, only 294 cases of rabies were reported in cats, both pet and feral. And I have talked to the health department locally. There are no rabies cases within the cat population in our downtown La Junta area, and as far as they know, in any other area. That's just 4.3% of the rabies cases reported in animals that year. Feral cats do not pose a rabies risk to humans. There haven't been a confirmed cat-to-human rabies transmission in more than 30 years. The number one source of rabies in the United States is wildlife.
That's your time, Jeffrey. Thank you.
Well, I have another piece of information I just wanted to give to you real quick. And so I just want to tell you one more thing, and maybe someone will recuse their time to me so that I can have another 5 minutes. But what I'm going to tell you is I believe we're only talking about the cat population because of a certain colony that lives in our downtown area. It lives behind the Copper Kitchen. It lives behind the rail yard. It lives behind Miss McIntyre's building. It lives behind Edward Jones, where Mr. Ayala is. And it lives behind Norm Murphy, where Mr. Ayala's wife works. So we're talking about one population. That's why we're talking about not feeding animals, is because the very people on your council want me to quit feeding a very specific group of animals in our downtown.
That's your time, Jeffrey.
You can have my 5 minutes.
Oh, she's going to give me her 5 minutes. Over the last 5 years, someone brought that colony to my attention about 5 years ago. I went over to check out what was going on because they knew I cared about cats. In fact, when I got on the council 8 years ago, I wanted to deal with our cat population and the inhumane treatment of animals without having a good shelter for them to be at. I wanted a humane society in La Junta. Unfortunately, you all know you have to have at least 4 people to make a vote on council, and I did not find anybody who was as interested as I was. So I went over to this population. There were over 40 cats living in that alley behind those buildings, behind all the buildings. In the last 5 years, we have taken out 25 of those cats. We have spayed and neutered them, we have rehomed them, and if they were sick or needed to be put down, we have put them down. We have used our own finances to do that, along with Ark Valley Animal Hospital, who does get some funding in and can help us to, with grant money, pay it. But thousands of dollars of my own money. There are less than 10 cats living in that alley right now. And I can prove that to anybody. Come down with me anytime. Less than 10 cats from 40. Goes to show that what we're doing by catching these cats, spaying and neutering these cats, and rehoming the ones that can be rehomed are making a difference. Now the problem is there's a few of them that cannot be rehomed. And if we can't rehome, if you go down there, they lay around in the back or in the park, they roam around, they eat, and they sleep. That's mostly what cats do. I have never seen a cat that prevented a house from being sold from North Murphy. I have never seen a cat that made a piece of lumber and not be sold from La Junta Trading. So I'm not quite sure, and you guys know I'm pro-business just like everybody else around here. We have one downtown, my family does, and I am pro-business and always have been. But the cats are not preventing business from happening in the downtown area. So what I'm asking from you is you do one of 3 things. One, you go ahead and scrap this ordinance and let's work together on something that will work. In Pueblo and several other cities, they have managed colonies, which would mean someone like myself, my vet, and possibly a spay and neuter would come to the city. We would register as a managed colony, and we would be responsible for what those cats were doing down there. If one was sick, if one was hurt, if babies had been born and abandoned, we would be called, we would take it over. We would still capture as many cats as we could and have them spayed and neutered, get them vaccinated, and help them live long lives. That's one option. Second option is you go ahead and pass the ordinance you're going to pass, and you allow people like me to come in and help. You put an addendum to it that doesn't just say, because what I don't get is I know all kinds of people, including Mr. Jackson, what are you going to do with those cats that are outside your house that you put the food on the back porch? Just start starving them to death? He has cats that live outside of his house that he feeds. We all do. A bunch of people have outdoor cats, they put a bowl of food. And I think the citizens of La Junta will think it's an overreach that the city council is going to tell them what they can put on their back porch. And so that's the second. The third thing is if you decide you want to pass the ordinance and you are not going to amend anything in it, then I respectfully ask that Ms. McIntyre, Mr. Ayala, and if Ms. Pantoja was here, Ms. Pantoja recuse themselves. It's a conflict of interest. Your buildings sit there. You're making this vote because your employers and your families live around there. And if you are going to make the vote, then you 3 need to recuse yourself from the vote. Thank you very much.
Let me comment about that because it is a critical legal issue. Take Ms. Prine's argument of conflict of interest is interesting, but not relevant or appropriate. I've checked the statute. I've given you an opinion. it is no more a conflict of interest than if you were considering a smog ordinance where we all breathe air, and trying to outlaw smog would make a conflict of interest. That extension that has been proposed is invalid here. I'm of the opinion, and will take the exact statement to the record, that there is no conflict of interest precluded by the conflict of interest statutes or by our municipal code. Nice try, didn't work.
Also, can you speak to the, it's not on private property, is that correct as well?
You're correct. We're not limiting what people can do on their own. Also on their own property.
So those of you that want to feed cats off your back porch would still, under this ordinance, be able to do so. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak?
Hi, my name is Pat Hills. I'm a retired citizen, and my wife and I have been involved on my own
Yep.
in a lot of this same.
You can't hear him, Julie?
You can't hear me?
Just up higher, there you go. Try that.
Can you do I have to lean in here? Can you hear me now?
I don't think that, is that one? Does he ever?
It's red.
No, it's red.
I can turn that way and just speak loud. What you're looking at is a community problem. It's not the people that are feeding the cats that are the problem. They're just taking care of animals. And my name's Pat Hills, 40246 Sherman Avenue, Ordway. I'm a retired person, and I have a degree in biology from the University of Idaho in 1981. This is a conflict, not because of that, but people are just turning cats loose. They just decide they don't want them anymore. I have one right now, nobody wants. Came to live with me, my neighbors moved away. Very, very common, they just leave them. So it's a community problem, and you're confused as to what to do, just like many small communities. Not feeding them and having starving cats is not really an option. They won't go away. One female cat in her litter in 7 years can produce 420,000 cats if it's not addressed. 420,000, I didn't make it up. That's how many one feral female can produce. 420,000. I lived in Montrose for many years. Delta, Colorado has so many stray cats that you can't drive down an alley without seeing 5 of them. My wife put together 4 spay and neuter clinics, which is the answer. It's not feeding them. It's spay and neuter clinics. They're not expensive. They actually pay for themselves. We're a friend of Jeffrey's, and when she told me about the not feeding things, there was a guy, the animal control officer in Delta, Colorado, who suggested that they release badgers to take care of their cat problem. That may have been the dumbest thing I ever heard, but it was right in there. 420,000 cats. Over 4 spay and neuter clinics, we trapped 420 cats. Are any of you familiar with Delta, Colorado? Very similar sized town, maybe a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit smaller. 420 cats, spayed and neutered, paid for by the community and paid for by people who can get low cost spay and neuter for their own animals. The people have a van. All the city has to provide is a place to do it. And I'm sure there's somebody in this community who has a building that would say, you can use my building and you can have a spay and 4 of them. Rocky Ford just did about 150 cats and dogs, paid for itself. Rocky Ford, right up the road here, with Kristen Bergen out of Denver. She has a van. She goes out and does these things all over the state. Very, very simple. It's an alternative to stuff that doesn't work. Trapping them and killing them doesn't work. If they end up in shelters, 99% of cats that go to shelters get killed because nobody wants them. That's a sad thing. I'm just speaking from my experience, and my experience is trap, spay, and neuter clinics and releasing them back into the community is what works. The other things don't work. You're pushing sand uphill. It's not going to happen. Think of the numbers of cats that are out there that are going to keep reproducing. You've got to be proactive in stopping the reproduction, not starving them to death. Not going to work, and especially not penalizing people for caring about animals that somebody dumped on the street. Cat's not a wild animal. They're not born like prairie dogs. They're not born like squirrels. Okay? They're a domestic animal. They lived outside for thousands of years. Pharaoh had cats. Okay? They live outside. They love it outside. Killing them is not the answer. Starving them is not the answer. Penalizing the people who feed them is not the answer. The answer is trap, neuter, and return. I'll leave this with you guys too. That's the answer. If you want to curb your cat problem, and it's a problem, not because of disease, but because there's poor animals out there that are starving to death. That's why people are feeding them. I mean, do you want to be the guy that votes to starve animals?
Yeah, that's not the vote.
How are they going to eat if people don't feed them? Simple question, Mayor. They're domestic animals. They're not a prairie dog. They're not a squirrel. They're not a skunk. By the way, I'm not a cat lover. I'm a scientist.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So if that would work for cats, then why would they not just do that with dogs?
People don't abandon dogs.
There's a lot of abandoned dogs around.
They do it with dogs. If these trap and neuter that Kristen Bergen does, and again,
But we don't turn them back loose into the community.
No, the people bring their dogs in when they have these clinics. You can bring your dog in, have your dog spayed and neutered, and then it doesn't have unwanted puppies.
Sure, I understand that. But what I'm saying is that there's a problem here, and it's not just with cats. There's a problem with roaming dogs. There's dogs that are being caught by the handful every week. And then they have Highway 50 Freedom Ride, when they don't come and pick these puppies up, that try to rehome them. I know a lot of them are euthanized, and it kills me. But if it's feeding, trapping, neutering, and spaying cats and then turning them loose back into the community, then why would we not do that with dogs?
I have no idea.
Just let them run around too.
I have no idea. That's probably a groundbreaking thought. I mean, it probably is something that needs to be done. Maybe it is being done in some places. I really don't know.
And I'm an animal lover. I mean, I'm a big animal lover. But I don't like to see any animal out there starving or not being taken care of or just turned loose by some of these people who take these animals. They're cute when they're little, then they turn them loose. But we can't just be overrun with them either.
No.
It's not fair to them.
No, and people are much more careful with their dogs than they are with cats. And cats, I mean, I didn't make up the term tomcat or alley cat. They're out there, and they do reproduce at an incredible rate, much more so than dogs. But I think it's a great idea, but never even heard of it. So, Trav?
Velasquez wants to.
That's your time. Thank you for coming.
Okay, you bet.
Okay, Paul.
Okay, sir, since you're a
Thank
biologist, I know that feeding cats, there's the outcome of feeding. So where do cats defecate? Where do they urinate? What about the xeriscape that's in Plaza Park? What about the grass? I know we've had a problem down the street from my house where I live, and cats would come and I've had several burn spots on my lawn. So that's happening to public property at the Plaza Park and at the xeriscape. And when this issue first came up, I went down there not to look for any cats, because if you look for cats, you're going to find cats. But I walked behind one of the eating establishments back there, and this was, I'm going to say, when this issue first came up, so it was still cooler weather, but I noticed that there was some furniture out there, and as I walked toward the alley, the first thing that I encountered was the smell of cat urine, which is pretty distinctive and noxious. So if you have an eating establishment there, and like I said, if you have feces that whether if it dries, it just doesn't go away. You know that as a biologist, that there could be airborne pathogens. Urine can be carry a pathogen. I don't know the lifespan of some of these things, but they can turn into dust, especially in the alleyway if there's vehicular traffic, burn up the lawns. So how do we deal with that problem? Because it's just not feeding; it's everything else. And you know, sir, as a biologist, that cats can carry a myriad of diseases.
Yeah, can I still speak? Cats don't have a lot of diseases that are transferred by feces or by urine. My neighbor can walk down the street and let his dog poop in my yard and does on a regular basis. Nothing I can do about it except go out and clean it up. What you've got to look at is you've got probably, if there's 10,000 people in town here, you probably got 5,000 stray cats. And unless you start to trap, spay, neuter, and release them, those populations will never decrease. Feeding them's not what's keeping them there. It's breeding. It's breeding. It's not feeding them. It's breeding them. So unless you start to trap, spay, and neuter them, you're never going to have less cats. They'll eat rats. They'll eat that same alley that you're talking about is full of fat in the big garbage cans behind the restaurant. They'll be in eating that. They'll find something to eat besides meow mix, which is probably what they're getting now, or except in Jeffrey's situation where she feeds them chicken breast. So, but you've got to start to get the cat populations down. You cannot do that unless you start to trap them, spay, and neuter them. And nothing else is going to work. They will still be here. They will still be breeding. What they'll be doing is dying in your buildings. So if you have a building that they can get in and out of, they'll go inside of it and die because they're going to starve to death. Or they're going to eat garbage and they're going to be diseased. Cat diseases, not human diseases, but cat diseases. So you've got, that's a problem. You have the problem. You know, it's not garbage and they're going to, whoa. You have the problem. The only answer to the problem is to get a hold of somebody that can start to spay and neuter them and stop them from having more babies. Because we're having them right now. One cat and its litter can create 420,000 cats in 7 years. I wish I could get that return on my IRA, but I can't. So it's a problem you have, and many communities, all communities have it. You're not new in it, and you're not new in looking for solutions to it. You're smart to look for solutions, but the solution is decreasing the breeding.
And then what about the problems of inbreeding? Since we have just one colony, inbreeding has become a problem with that as well, correct?
Yeah, you have one colony downtown. You probably have, and you don't know it, 30 or 40 colonies in this town. It's just go out at dusk and drive around the alleys in this town, and anywhere you see one cat, there's 5.
They live in the sewers in La Junta.
They
watch
live
the sewers at night. They live in the sewers.
They live everywhere.
I think that we need to keep things in context here. This ordinance simply says that you can feed your cats on your property. You just can't feed those cats on someone else's property, or on the city streets, or on governmental properties, or in parks. This is not saying to starve animals. It's limiting where animal lovers such as yourself can feed cats without being improprietous. That's all.
I'm not an animal lover.
Cats, then? How do you trap them and spay them if you cannot
Well,
down them?
if there is a person that, I don't have all the answers. I do have Pueblo's ordinance though, and I do know what they require, and you wouldn't like what they require. But if you feel that strongly about a cat, take him home. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to speak?
Now, we do have Joey Gasnick here from Department of USDA, and just give information out on feral cats.
Joey, you want to come up?
Quite some time.
It's good to see you back.
Good to see you back.
It's good to be here. So again, my name is Joey Gasnick. I think I probably know most of the people in this room. I used to work for the city years ago. Now I work for the United States Department of Agriculture, a division called Wildlife Services. And our goal, Wildlife Services, is to provide expertise where human and wildlife conflict exists. I am not here to give an official stance of the United States Department of Agriculture's stance on feral cats. The information that I can bring to the discussion is firsthand experience that I have from working in Otero, Bent, Crowley counties, and for the city of La Junta and for the Army Corps of Engineers. The first time I heard about this ordinance was today, and I heard what the ordinance, I've been listening very carefully, and from as I understand it, the issue is feeding those cats on, and I don't care if it's public or private, but feeding those animals, whether it's a cat or anything else, doesn't matter really. What I see in my work is hot zones of human-wildlife conflict, where those wild animals are attracted to that food. And that's where I become involved, because those wild animals, typically in those hot zones around those feeding areas, is skunks, possums, and in some areas foxes. Skunks, foxes, rabies vectors, that's not new knowledge for anybody. I see an increase in damage to property. I see an increase in monetary loss by the public. Sometimes it's the public, sometimes it's the school district, sometimes it's a business owner, sometimes it's anybody. So the feeding stations, from my perspective and what I've seen, is they're attracting those wild animals. And when humans and wildlife conflict, there can be issues. There can be all the things that people have talked about, disease vectors, not super common, but toxoplasmosis is a people call it cat scratch fever. It's spread by cat feces. That's why I didn't let my wife, when she was pregnant, change the litter box. I have a cat. So yeah, I think it's important to maybe just think about that, just consider that information. And I didn't, I came to just give information. I'm not on this side or that side or any side. So yeah, just consider those wild animals that, a skunk may not get rabies from a cat. A skunk may bring rabies with it.
Joey, can I ask you a quick question?
Please.
How do you feel about not just continuous amounts of foods being out, but limited feeding? Say for 1 hour per day in a certain area. I don't think doing that, especially if it's monitored by whoever's feeding, you're probably not going to get the possum, the fox, those type animals in there, because you pick up the food when you're done.
It makes sense. What I have seen in wildlife populations is that wildlife becomes habituated as well. And to give you an example, I was recently at a training in Reno, Nevada, and there were some gentlemen that work for the same outfit that I work for. They work in Puerto Rico, and they have a feral hog problem there. And the way they trap those feral hogs for later translocation is they go out with a bucket of corn and they just bang on the bucket. And them hogs know, oh, it's dinner time. It's dinner time. I've seen that in coyote populations in our counties, in our areas, where the wildlife becomes habituated to that time of day or the sound of that vehicle starting. So I can't speak from a scientific standpoint how that would affect it, but I know that wildlife has and does very easily become habituated to very specific times. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. I've been doing it for 5 years, and I've never seen a possum or fox or anything down there. But
and I didn't bring any data with me, but I do nuisance trapping and relocation, translocating of animals for the city of La Junta. But I didn't bring data but I couldn't tell you there's 15 of these and 25 of those and 100 of this, whatever species that is. But a very high number of possums this year, very high number. From 22nd Street on south,
I
on
have
north,
one that lives
all the
under
way
my
down.
house. He comes out every year. I don't even know where he lives. I don't put food out at my house.
And you're right on that transition zone between the, that rural-urban interface, where you're real close to the prairie, and that prairie goes for miles and miles and miles. So, it's just not uncommon. But I've also been live trapping and translocating possums and skunks from the middle of town, that aren't necessarily right on that fringe habitat. So they're definitely around. Again, I didn't bring any data. I'd be happy to share that with you later time, how many possums I have caught this year. But I notice a big wildlife congregation, a draw station is what we call it. That's a big draw station, and beyond the shadow of a doubt, that's where the majority of those nuisance calls are going to come from. Animals getting sprayed by skunks because there's an increase of skunk population in a specific area that is just drawn to where those cats are being fed. So, the issue is feeding, and it's worth noting that that is a draw. It is a draw for wildlife. Not all wildlife is diseased either. We'd be kidding ourselves if we thought that every time a skunk or a cat ate cat food, it's going to give somebody rabies. But it's a realistic possibility as well. And I don't believe we've had any rabies cases in the last at least 2 3/4 years that I've been doing this job. I know we haven't. But it's also my understanding that most of the time, animals that are suspected rabid are typically not tested unless there's some type of conflict. Did they attack a human? Did they attack a pet? Or did somebody just see a skunk acting bizarre and it died? And typically those aren't tested. But I do notice that, and like I said, I'm not on one side of the fence or the other, but it causes other problems that haven't been discussed here, and that's the wildlife conflict. And cat, skunk, possum, bear, whatever, it's a life and it deserves to live. I understand and I agree 100% with that. But I don't like to see, or I don't think anybody here would like to see a disease outbreak that affects those wild animals either, because they don't deserve that either. So, just some talking points, and I'm happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
Thank you, Joey.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Joy.
Sir.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else that would like to talk?
Hi, I'm Dr. Tahuli from Ark Valley Animal Hospital here in town, and so I did want to reiterate, I'm pretty sure that most of feeding issues with wildlife being a problem and coming around is going to be leaving food overnight. I mean, your wildlife comes out at night. My possum comes out at night to find that food. So if you had a feeding specific time and you're picking up during the day, it is going to decrease that wildlife issue tremendously as far as that goes. But I actually just wanted to say that I'm a little concerned sometimes. I've only been in here 3 times now, so, and every time it's something that comes up, a vote that just does not make sense that you guys are passing. And the last one, big one, would have been the pit bull ban. And you had 3 veterinarians in here that night telling you guys that that was not the way that should go, and it still went that way. And that's been changed since then, thank goodness. And now you have an aggressive dog bill, that which is the way it should have went to begin with. But to get off of that subject, I don't understand the whole concept, because you are, like I said, these cats are not going to go away because of this. They are going to find food. They're just going to be unhealthy. They're going to be diseased more because their immune systems are down more because you're not taking care of them. So I can tell you there is a study from Hebrew University, 15-year study, the way to handle colonies. And unfortunately, no matter what you guys do, you're going to have colonies of cats here. I mean, we have tried, even the 4 veterinarians here, we tried bringing down the population of animals. We even had a spay and neuter alliance that we went to, and we take your Park Meadows trailer park. I mean, we did a trap, neuter, and release there for almost a year, and we got almost every cat in that place down to none, other than a few that were managed. 5 years later now, there are cats everywhere again. And it is not because, like I said, it's because you're going to have citizens that are going to keep releasing them. Don't care and are just going to keep letting them populate. Like he said, they are going to overpopulate within a year. I mean, it's amazing how they reproduce. So it's like what I've always said, it's like a salmon swimming upstream. We can't keep up with the spay neuters, with how many there are, unless somebody else is managing the whole thing over and over and over again. You go in and you do this spay neuter and you trap and release and you don't keep up with it, it's going to be right back where it was again, and that's exactly what's happened. And unfortunately, our citizens are just not willing to help out. I mean, that's why that whole Spay Neuter Alliance fell apart, was because it's always the same people putting all the effort in. But like I said, that this ordinance is not going to fix anything. You're just going to make people mad, and they're still going to feed these cats, you know. And so would you come together, you know, like I said, get some sort of committee that can actually do some sort of managed colony, because that, like I said, that 15-year study proved the best thing you can do is trap, neuter, release, continual trap, neuter, release, have a healthy population of cats that are spayed and neutered, and they manage themselves. Okay? And the easiest way to do that is to have a regular feeding schedule, because that's how you trap and neuter them. And you get them trapped because they come to a specific place to get fed. They're easy to catch, and you know, it's just, but you do need to have somebody who's managing the whole thing, you know, and making sure each year it's continuing to happen, because unfortunately, you know, Joe Blow down the street is going to let his cat out, or somebody's going to move in, and you're going to have another one that didn't get spayed or neutered, so they're not going to stay the same. But they are healthier, 100% healthier animals, and they're not going to be then as infectious to people, you know, because, and so here's I've always wanted to come here and say this. I do not understand why La Junta is the only place that does not have rabies tax requirement. And I've heard it's because they don't want to deal with it. I mean, really, there's not enough work people to do it or whatnot. But that is such a huge source of revenue for you guys. For the shelter, you know, I just don't even understand why you wouldn't do it. One, because safety issue. You know, dogs, 100% dogs need to be rabies vaccinated, but cats get rabies. And the cats are more likely to be playing around with your infected bat out there that's acting silly or doing crazy things and getting infected too. So, you know, they all need to be, you know, vaccinated. And so why our city only sees an animal as dog as an animal and not a cat, I don't quite understand that. Why the shelter only will take care of dogs and not cats, I don't understand that. I mean, they're both domesticated species that require a city to take care of them. So why don't we implement having rabies tags, make people, okay, because I'm going to tell you also that you can take the numerous cities, the way they get spay and neuter and under control, and all these animals that are constantly, because just like you were saying, I know the frustration. I mean, when we offer, I mean, literally, I swear sometimes it takes us going to their house and spay and neutering their animal on their couch or something, because they just, I mean, it's available. It is cheap. Yes, I mean, most people have to spend the normal amount of money, but there is tons of low-cost spay neuter, you know, and they just don't do it. So they still let them breed. They still let them breed. So it's going to be a problem forever, unfortunately.
That's your time.
Are you serious? Okay, you know what? Can I please have 5 extra minutes, because I'm working 12, 16-hour days.
Does anyone else want to?
Out of my way.
Okay.
So
We got to just do it the right way. So.
I know. I'm sorry. So if you guys could do that and actually implement an extra charge. So they do this in lots of cities. You get your rabies tag. It costs you $150 if you have an attack female or male. It costs you $10 if it's spayed or neutered. And what is the biggest thing that people don't like to do here? They don't like to spend money. So they are going to get their animals spayed or neutered. You know, some of those, Denver, it's like $300 to have an intact spay, you know. So they decide, you know, so who's got the intact spay, you know, either the ones that haven't been caught or the people that are legitimately breeding and are willing to spend the money on that extra cost. But you do that, one, it gets you guys money for, like I said, to get the shelter built up. Give them maybe some money, or, you know, why somebody can't actually get together and do a grant to figure out how to handle these cats. I mean, there's so many things that could be done other than just deciding we're just not going to feed them. I mean, that's not solving anything. It's actually going to make the situation worse. It really is. So like I said, so I know it's a lot of information that had nothing to do with your guys' ordinance tonight, but I just wanted to say there's so many ideas out there that can make such a bigger difference. And hitting, like I said, that sometimes with the citizens, you have to hit them in their pocketbook. And if you do that, then they're going to make a choice. Okay, you're right. I'm going to get my animal spayed or neutered. Because, not because they wanted to, but you forced them to because they're going to end up paying a huge bill they don't want to pay. But, like I said, one, their rabies. They have their rabies, they got their tag, you know where they're at, and they're spayed or neutered. And then so we can at least some other way try to stop the pet population here, okay? Because like I said, it's just, like I said, almost to the point where we have a hard time continuing because it's just like swimming upstream and we're not, and then we get there and then we fall back down because it's because nobody else wants to spay or neuter, or like I said, you're just going to always have citizens that just don't care, and so and they just overpopulate so quickly that there just is no way to keep it under control. But at least the feral stray, like I said, there is a way to get this under control if you continually do it, because we've shown we can. We just then it fell apart and nobody kept continuing to do it, and now, like I said, it's right back where it was. So the animals aren't going to go away. Like I said, not feeding them is just going to make it worse. They're just going to get sick and diseased. I think there's a way to manage it for the wildlife, like I said, because most of the time the wildlife are going to come out at night looking for that food. So,
how far do colonies go around? What's their perimeter that they?
I have no idea how big a colony can be. I know, like I said, as far as their cats can wander quite a ways, but most of these cats are staying within I would say a couple blocks of the
Usually
perimeter.
a cat has about a 3-block radius of where it roams.
Yeah. So because, like you said, like he's right, you'll probably be surprised how many colonies you actually have here that you're not even aware of.
The trailer courts are the worst.
Because we have some out at Walmart, and we just take it on ourselves to go out and trap and catch them and spay and neuter them and release them again. But and we try to keep them down, and when we start to see them coming back up again, we allow them to do it again. So
what would you say to the other wildlife that Mr. Gasnick mentioned too? Do you see any of that being?
Personally, I have never seen. I have seen a possum downtown once, and there is an increase in possums. He's right this year, but I can't say that's because of the feral. It's like anything else, kind of waxes and weans as far as the number of animals you see. With some years we had a major problem with the coyotes attacking, people's animals even in their backyards, but that's really decreased in the last couple of years. So I really think, like I said, it just is like anything, in wildlife. It's going to wax and wean with how much you're seeing each year, and I don't know why the possums are up so much. Whether it's because we are having a huge tick issue this year already starting, there's more to eat, I don't know, like I said. But do I think it's because more people are feeding? No, because your major issue with the wildlife is people feeding in their own backyards. Like I said, the possums are smart. They can remember like years later where there was food, and they will go back to it.
Doctor, I'd like to follow up on that then. What this ordinance does is doesn't say that you can't feed cats.
But it is saying you can't feed the stray cats.
Doesn't say. It says that if you're going to feed cats, feed them on your property.
But the colonies are not on my property.
Well, I don't think that we are characterizing the ordinance correctly by saying that we are hoping that cats die, because we're not. We're saying that people in a community have conflicting privileges and rights. What I do affects you and you and you and you.
So what do you expect will happen to the cats when they're not fed?
There are unexpected consequences that may occur, but the beauty of our system is we can make adjustments. I sat through our pit bull problem, and I remember it very vividly as to what we did. We made adjustments as we grew smarter and got more acclimated to the issue. But this ordinance does not say stop feeding cats. This ordinance says...
But it will make it harder to control that colony. You do understand that.
If that's it, that's it. But is that colony more precious than the landowner that is affected by that colony and the stray cat?
If they understood that they're actually going to probably have more cats,
That's a
so
judgment
if
call.
next year it ends up that they're back to 40, 50 animals, maybe then they're going to be like, you know what, maybe we should let Jeffrey set up a,
I don't want to debate with you because that's not the purpose of my question. My question to you, ma'am, was if we are taking this very small step to require that there's not public feeding, to require that cafe
but
owners...
I guess I just don't understand why you would do this and not actually work to solve the
Nobody
problem.
has precluded any of these other good ideas. If this gentleman had an idea, Jeffrey had an idea, you had several ideas. This ordinance doesn't preclude any of that. This ordinance is a singular step.
You can't, you're not going to be able to work the TNRs in a colony that is on community if you're saying you can't feed the animals.
Feed them.
It's going to make it
Just
very
don't feed them.
difficult.
Don't feed animals that interfere with my property rights. That's what this ordinance says. You can do it on your property. Please do it all day long. You can feed them.
Who actually owns the alley?
Actually, there is a rule about who owns the alley.
I don't know.
The ownership of the alley goes halfway into the alley, and the abutting landowners own right up to the middle of the alley. Honest, and same way with the street, actually. So, do you think that this is so limiting of a step that it precludes all these other good ideas that have been thrown out?
I don't know. Like I said, I personally would not vote this way. I think you need to step back and make some adjustments and really think about what people have told you tonight and maybe come up with a different ordinance and a different way of taking care of this. Because I think there is a great way, and I think you have enough caring people to make a difference. It's just going to require the city allowing some things to happen. And unfortunately, it all comes down to having some money, too, to be able to do it. Because, it's fantastic when these spay-neuter places will come down and do something, but they can't just come to us. So there's an entire state that needs to be taken care of, and we can only do so much. And now we're unfortunately short veterinarians, too. So as far, I don't know. I just think there's a lot of work to be done still.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
When was the last clinic that they came down and did a spay-neuter for La Junta?
La Junta, I'm not sure.
COVID affected it a lot. They had a couple scheduled and COVID
killed it for a long time, but we just had 3 in the valley within like a year, which is pretty amazing. Because
3 this year?
Not within the last 12 months, I would say we probably had 3, and that would be. And I consider the valley pretty much, anywhere from Ordway to Rocky Ford to.
How can we get that out so people know that? So that
it's filled within days usually once they have one of those. So I think they know because they put it out on the websites, they put it on Facebook, they put it, they never have a problem with that totally being full.
I hadn't heard, I didn't know what.
And also, every veterinary clinic has CPUF money. You just have to be income qualified. So,
and Tracy has helped me. You can ask her how many of these cats from that very alley I have. Clinic
we help because at CPUF we're not allowed to do it with strays. It has to be an owner-owned animal. Anyway, that has nothing to do with.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Certain grants have to be done certain ways, but
that's why most of them are kittens.
But I have angel fund money and different that I can help her do some of that.
Thank you, Tracy. We appreciate you coming in. Thank you for what you do down here.
I just think there's a better way we could do this. So and all together, everything. So.
And we know we're down vets, and everybody I talk to really appreciates the hard work that you're doing. Thank you.
So like I said, because I'm not all just even for the, I'm just pet overpopulation in general. It's just so sad to see. It really is, and sometimes I feel like we've just taught people to wait for the low-cost spay-neuters, and that's sad too sometimes because now they just think, well, I'm just going to wait for the free one, but while they're waiting, their animal has 2 or 3 litters. So if we could just teach them the other way, that it's correct to get it done, or like I hate to say that, but hurt them in the pocketbook and.
Before you sit down, how long can they go without being fed before they start having issues?
Like an animal?
No, the cats. And if they're not being fed, how long before they?
Cats will just find something else to eat. I mean, they're
In a 3-block radius is what you're saying?
They're scavengers. you just won't have any birds down there, wildlife, anything. I mean, they're probably keeping your mouse population.
That's what
amazingly
Copper
under
Kitchen said, is that the mouse population is way
control.
down there. But they get in their trash.
But they'll
There's
start
food.
wandering further to find food.
Couple
But they're
days?
just- Well, no, they'll find food, but they're gonna just slowly starve, and get in worse and worse condition than if they were just fed,
They need to eat
And
every
the
day.
funny thing is a happy fed cat will mouse more than any starved animal will, because they do it for play. So they actually hunt even better when they're taken care of. So that's been shown over and again from people that have barn animals. If they'll just take care of their animals, they'll actually keep their growth population under control much better. So.
Thank you. Cassandra, you've waited patiently. Come on up.
No, I'm never patient.
Okay.
Do I need to introduce myself again?
You already did, Cassandra.
Okay.
We're ready to rock and roll. Let's
So,
go.
I'm just kind of reiterating some things, making comments on some other comments that I heard, so bear with me. I was paying attention to moreover the demeanor of Miss Prime, and I don't think this is an attack personally, but it almost seems like you're taking it as one.
Ask them.
So, no, my turn. Sorry. As a property owner in the area, I do have specific, can somebody turn this down? Jesus. Is there a volume level?
You're loud enough,
Okay.
Cassandra. You can go.
Okay. As a property owner, I have a set of concerns, and as an animal lover, I have a set of concerns. One, I'd really like to point out, I feel that I'm a generous giver of the Angel Fund, so I personally have been helping you in your quest.
Thank you.
I also give to the Lahana Animal Rescue generously, who does the trap, spade, rehome, or release in some cases, but mostly I know that there was a small colony that I had them come get, and they took it to a farm. Now, I don't think it was the proverbial, the dog had to go to live on a farm thing. I think they actually took it to a farm. But I'm not concerned about diseases from cats, like some people are talking. But then again, I'm an asthmatic chain smoker, so not much scares me. I do have a lot of sympathy for hungry animals. I mean, me personally, anybody that knows me knows I'm going to step over a hungry person to go give a healthy dog a treat. I just prefer animals over humans. So I don't want any animal to go hungry. But as a property owner, I wouldn't want animals lingering on my property or even around my property, causing other animals to come, or I'll deal with the mouse problem myself. I don't need feral cats in my neighborhood doing that. I had 4 cats that were in the alley behind my house a couple years back. I went to all the neighbors and I asked them, are these your cats? Because there was cat food out in the alley all the time. Nobody fessed up to owning these cats, so I called the animal rescue. They came and got the cats and had them fixed. Cats were gone. I assume that they rehomed them somewhere, but I do know that they will take the time and money and take animals to no-kill shelters. I don't really know what the answer is, but I don't want anybody doing anything that brings about something I don't want to happen on my property. And if that makes me a horrible person, then the right for me to enjoy my property is more important than unclaimed animals. There are places that will take these unclaimed animals, so maybe we need to pursue that instead of going onto somebody else's property and feeding them. I don't want animals to die. I don't want animals to starve. But if I don't want them on my property, I don't want them on my property. And I took care of an abandoned cat, and I trapped it, and I took it to the vet, took it to Dale Davis, and made sure it was fixed. And then I found out it was declawed, and this poor thing was abandoned. Well, I wasn't going to take it home because my dogs would think it was a chew toy. So I cared for it at a location that I asked permission for, because it wasn't my property. I cared for it there. I would brush it, even though I'm allergic to cats, and I would feed it, and then I found it a home. Thank you, Bill Jackson. But I asked permission if I could take care of this unclaimed animal on somebody else's property. If you were doing this on Santa Fe, you and I were going to be having a big problem if you were doing it on my property. I don't think any of them should recuse themselves because we're all citizens and they're in charge of making decisions. Thank you.
Tom, did you want to say something?
Hello, I'm Tom Brand. I reside at 1915 Colorado, and I also have a business at 118 Colorado, which is kind of where the hotspot is. And just for the record, I am an animal lover myself. I like cats, I like dogs, but I don't like people feeding these cats behind my office, littering behind my office with totes for them to sleep in. And I don't like the feces that's around my building because of these cats, and all the food that's left behind, and all the containers that are left behind, and all the hand warmers that are left behind, littering the alley because of somebody trying to take care of the cats. So I get that you care for these cats, but I do not like the fact that they want to feed them on my property for that reason. I agree with what Cassandra said. I want to enjoy my property. I want to be able to go outside and leave my door open while I take supplies in and out of my room. I had one cat go in there probably 2 weeks before we finally got the thing out. And luckily it didn't die in our office, but nonetheless it was in there. And so what's happening is when you feed these cats, they become tame, and then they think they can just hang around. And just today I went out and threw stuff away, and there was a cat that's evidently been fed, but looked mangy to me because it was losing all of its hair and had bald spots on it. So one of the last cats I saw had infection, probably from a cat fight. You know, he barely even keep his eyes open, keep his mouth open. Excuse me, and stuff like that. So, you know, these cats do get sick, and when they're not cared for, you know, properly, meaning with vets and with shots and with spayed and neutered. I agree with the spay and neuter. I think that's the key to getting rid of the population overall. And so more power to that program. But as far as feeding them on my property, if I want to feed them, I'll do that. But I prefer that the citizens of La Junta don't take it on themselves to feed on my property, or put their totes on my property, or to litter with the bags and the food containers on my property. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's some water for you, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ron?
Ron Hall, 602 San Juan. I own the rail yard. We have a patio behind the rail yard where we serve food. And we have patio furniture out there, but we can't put cushions on it. The cats destroy it. And they destroy it in a unseemly manner, if you don't mind saying it that way. So it's my opinion that this issue is one, like most issues, that are going to take several steps to fix. And this is one step in the right direction. I don't want people feeding cats on my property. And I don't want the cats to be, nobody owns it. Calling these cats domesticated is simply wrong. Nobody owns these cats. nobody's there to take them in to get spayed and neutered, there's not an owner. So these cats are already spreading out. There's been some things done in the alley, other steps taken, and they're already spreading out to a larger neighborhood now. And we need to address that issue in other ways as well. But the step that you're trying to take now is a sane and intelligent step, and one step along the way. I would like you to pass that ordinance.
Thank you. Miss Ayala. Mrs. Ayala.
Hello, my name is Angela Ayala. I always have to say this. I'm speaking for myself and only myself on behalf of myself right now. I live at 1514 San Juan, and I didn't plan on speaking this evening, but I was kind of called out by name, so I thought I would get up here and share something with you guys. I picked up a kitten from in front of Modern Woodman that had a severe respiratory illness and a double eye infection. And much to my husband's displeasure, I took it home and I took it to the vet. And I paid $275 out of pocket for said cat. This cat was incredibly contagious. I own a cat. I have a neutered male cat that I love a lot, that's had its shots, that's been neutered, and is taken care of accordingly. This particular cat, I was told by my vet, was incredibly contagious. So much so that I had to seclude this cat in a bathroom for 10 days while I medicated this cat and gave this cat eye drops. If this cat was left downtown, part of this colony, all of those cats would have had that problem. I didn't want the cat to die. It was laying in the middle of a sidewalk when I was going to the bank and I just found it. I did take it home. I did take care of it. I paid for it and then I found it a home. I don't want any cats to die. I just think there's a better way to handle this problem, and taking offense one side or the other is not productive. I don't see any harm in taking this step, and I do think that there's been a lot of good suggestions tossed about tonight, and I wish people were passionate about all things regarding the city and not just the cats. Thanks.
Is there a way they could feed it in just one spot that would actually be communicable to all the businesses?
Right now, they're not being fed on any of these property owners' property. None of them. Yes, my truck is sitting on a city lot right now, but once I knew that all of these business owners wanted nothing to do with the cats on there, even though they had lived in Miss McIntyre's building for 5 years because there was a hole that you could get into, she didn't want them there anymore, and so I parked my truck away from everybody. I put the food in my truck, and I tried to lure the cats away from the places.
Jeffrey, I think you had your time, and I don't appreciate you calling me out on this.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Excuse me. Sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Mr. Stafford hasn't spoken and Ms. Worley hasn't spoken.
Mr. Stafford, would you like to speak?
I think it's all been said.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Worley.
I'm not a cat lover.
Okay. Any other council members would you like to speak?
Can Mrs. Stafford speak if Edward gives her time?
No, she gave her time.
But if he gives his time to her?
Do you want to give your time?
Do you want to give your time to your wife?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to eat tomorrow. I haven't heard you speak in public since I was a student in your class now.
My name is Clara Lee Stafford. I live at 9 Circle Drive here in La Junta. I have a passionate love for animals. And I think when I first heard about this, I was angry. I continue to be angry. This seems like such a petty issue. I have never seen, I know there are wild animals downtown. I have never seen them. I know Mrs. Shand took care of animals all over downtown. And as far as I know, no one ever called her out on it. This seems like such a petty thing to me. These animals need taken care of. What I don't understand, La Junta has all kinds of problems, all kinds of major problems. It seems to me that spay, neuter, etc., trapping is the answer. We don't have an institution here in La Junta that takes care of those things. We have people like Cassandra, we have Dr. Tahuli, we have another vet who does this. My husband and I have given money to Dr. Davis for years to help take care of animals whose people could not afford to have them spayed and neutered. But we do not have a sufficient shelter. If we had a shelter, which seems to me is something that this council could address, instead of, I don't see the problem. You could pick up, all of a sudden you can't pick up the trash in the alley behind your business. You can't pick up the pillows off of your furniture. You can't sweep an area that's being bothered. I think it's petty and small and an insignificant problem and should be addressed in a different manner. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to talk? Okay, I will just say a brief comment before we go into a vote. As my wife mentioned, I am a cat owner. Albus Dumbledore is my cat. I enjoy cats. I don't think anyone on this council has a cat problem where they do not like cats. So I don't want that mischaracterized for this. I'm also pro-business, and I don't want our business owners to be offended by wanting to have a successful business here in town. We're talking about tonight, they're talking about one area, one hot zone, if you will, but this would go for multiple areas. It's not just one spot in town. Is that right, Dean?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You would still be able to feed these cats at your own home, and you would still be able to do some of these other ideas that we've talked about tonight. This would not stop us from doing that. This is the first step. Right? And it's not saying we're going to starve cats. I don't want to starve cats. I don't want to starve dogs. I don't want to do any of that. But it's a step that is being proposed. Right? We talked about different things. We've talked about this since, can you pull the first, was it February when Paul brought it up? And there's numerous times for anyone to come in and give us these suggestions. We asked for help. We asked for the public to come in. So I'm glad you guys came in and continue to do so. This will be an ongoing thing, but this is the first step. But as far as I know, even the members that are at CML right now, no one is anti-cat or anti-animal in any way. We're just looking for ways to help the situation, not just for the cats, but also for our business owners downtown.
I might make one comment, if I may. We're all after making something better for our community. As this ordinance does state, it's doesn't have anything to do with not spayed or neutering. And I think with the comments that we've had, I think that a committee should get started on trying to collect these animals and getting them to have that properly handled. But in terms of it being a city area where this is just becoming a nuisance, is what it's sounding like.
A hot zone.
A hot zone. I guess that's the new word, a hot zone.
Hot zone.
And I do feel like I represent the people of Ward 2 as I was voted for, so thank you.
Thank you. All right, so where are we at on this procession? It's been so long, Dean.
There's been a motion to approve the ordinance, a second.
There's been the discussion.
Period. So you're ready for
Is
a vote.
Paul still on?
Paul, you still there? Paul?
Yes, yeah, I'm still there.
Okay, if he's there, we will ask for your vote.
Yes.
And that passes unanimously.